You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Broadcasting from the Blanchardstown Centre, this is Phoenix FM.
This is 92.5 Phoenix FM, community radio for Dublin 15.
Hey everybody, it's JB Jeremy Borash, and you are listening to Darrow.
Welcome to the Wrestling Rewind, the only wrestling podcast by fans who don't hate wrestling.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Wrestling Rewind here on Phoenix 92.5 FM, the True Petty channel, and of course nerdtoknowmedia.com, thewrestlingrewind.com. My name is Darragh O'Connor and welcome to our, listen, sometimes when we start this show we're like, we don't really have anything to talk about, or we talk about nonsense because we don't want to talk about the thing that we're going to talk about, or blah blah blah. When I say this has been the busiest week in wrestling in a very long time, that's not even going to do it justice. We are going to be relentless and ruthless on this show because we're trying to fit it in 55 minutes. It's our most up-to-date show. There's like 10 things hitting the Nerd to Know Media feed. There's a bunch of shows hitting the True Penny feed. If you're not signed up to either one of those or both, sign up to both because I've been
doing
so
with your
busy.
life.
Absolutely, Martin. So look, sign up to those because there's a ton of content coming. I finally got back up to date, but we're still not up to date because this entire week has been consistent breaking news. So we're going to try to do what we do, and if we don't, I might do another, might do a small video later on, or whatever, or we'll do another show next week. But there's just so much to get through, and we're going to try to get through it. But I'm not going to get through it alone. You heard him, you know him, you love him. 1-0, the real AEW World Champion, Mr. Martin Harty. How are things, Martin?
Hi, Dara. We're recording this at 25 minutes past 1 in the morning, so this counts as late night radio. Welcome to Late Night Graps.
Oh God! Did you notice, by the way, that you have a new title because Punk looks like he's been suspended, so now you're going to be the interim world champion. So you have a win over him, obviously. So I mean, it just makes sense. You don't want contender.
You know what? In fact, I don't even accept the term interim because, like he said when he came out with the title, nobody pinned me for this, so it's the real world title. So right. No, I'm not the interim. I am the real world champion. That's fair.
I mean, look, you have a win over him. You know, it's not a pinfall victory, but it is.
And I even have a picture of myself at All In holding the AEW world title. So I mean that's case closed.
That's the case for me, man. I'm like, I absolutely think this is the way. You should ring up Tony and be like, hey Tony, listen. Yeah. I got you covered.
And I'll say, and you know what else, Tony? See if Jack Perry wants to go through real glass. I'll let him.
I have no problem. You want to go to glass, thumbtacks, fire?
Yeah,
you do you, boo.
Jungle, you know? I'll put you through bulletproof glass if you want.
You know what it reminds me of? So, obviously, I was in Orlando for the past 2.5 weeks, right? And the reason why Disney lost the Wizarding World of Harry Potter is because they wouldn't let her use a train. Like, you know, that Hogwarts Express thing? They wouldn't allow that. And I'm just like, I don't know, because apparently Disney have a really thing about trains. They only want specific ones. And I'm just like, listen, lady, you can have all the trains you want. You're going to print money. And that's absolutely the way I see it. It's like, listen, Jack, go through all the glass you want, man. Look here you go. Eat it. Go on.
You know? Sugar glass, salt glass, plate glass, like whatever you like.
Whatever you like. You can go whatever you want. But look, so obviously the biggest story of the week and the most comedic story is Brawl In. We will get to that, but we have to start with two actually sad stories because, listen, one is obviously the sad passing of Terry Funk. Terry Funk is just one of the legends of wrestling, right? He really is. But it's been a long time coming, and as horrible as that sounds, I mean, like, he's been in poor health for a while. We've had a couple of scares. It's really upsetting that he has passed. And I'll get you in on that now in a minute now, Martin. But one that just I'm still not full. I haven't fully processed yet. I'll probably like talk about it on the video later on or the show later on. Is Bray Wyatt. I mean, I was coming through Manchester to airport. I just got off a 9-hour flight from Orlando, and went on the Wi-Fi, used the VPN because you always use VPN on public Wi-Fi, folks, and saw a tweet saying Bray Wyatt's dead, and obviously I thought that was not real because it's like it's Bray Wyatt,
because 90% of headlines that come from wrestling media are fake.
Oh, absolutely. But it's also like, it's Bray Wyatt. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And it turns out, no, that in fact he has passed. You know, he died of a sudden heart attack in his sleep. And I got this at like, well, it must have been 8 a.m. And I still can't believe it. And it's look, long-term listeners of this show know two things about me: that I love Triple H and I love Bray Wyatt. So my favorite wrestler died this week, and I still haven't properly processed it yet. Yeah,
and that's like, I mean, people are into wrestling in to different levels, but like that's a genuine, like, I know Bret Hart's gonna die someday, and that's like gonna be like a major thing for me, you know. So like that's something I've genuine sympathies for. Not just for you, but like he inspired a kind of fandom that was very fervent and really dedicated, and I can imagine that, you know, people are going to take it really hard.
It's so weird, man. It's such a weird thing, like, because you don't, out of all the wrestlers to die, you again, to use the term, I expect X, Y, and Z to die, is a weird thing to say, and it's a kind of horrible thing to say, but you are expecting, you know, older wrestlers to pass, and it's always sad. But when someone who's 37 just out of nowhere,
it you know, it reminded me a lot of not reminded me because I wasn't there, but it reminded me of the story of Andy Kaufman's death, because his character, or the character he portrayed, was of such a nature that it's kind of the thing he'd do. Like, you know, like you kind of didn't believe it. And Bray Wyatt's whole character was like, you could see that being a story.
You absolutely could, yeah.
You know, so like, I mean, so on the one hand, there's that. On the other hand, wrestling fans are kind of conditioned, and it's a terrible thing. They're kind of conditioned to expect wrestlers today, because of the way wrestling was in the 70s and 80s and 90s. You know, you had a lot of really hard times on the road. You know, you're talking people on the road 300 days a year, a lot of drinking, a lot of drugs. But then when someone dies, like you say, Bray Wyatt, 37 years old, of a heart attack, obviously he had underlying conditions. He had a heart condition, and that was exacerbated by COVID and that. Yeah. But it struck me a lot, like when Brody Lee died. It was just so unexpected and so different. Unbelievable. Do you know what? It wasn't even, I don't even think that it was unbelievable. I think it was that it was believable, because it wasn't like the lads in the 80s who died because they were, you know, wrestling 300 days a year and, you know, doing lanes of coke the length of a football field. like he's just a real person who died of a real thing that people die of, and that
I think that's what it is.
That nearly hits you harder.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very good point. It wasn't like he died of something fantastic, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like, it actually, I think there is a comic book. I can't place it what it is, but I think there is a comic book story somewhere where like a character just dies of like a heart attack or dies in their sleep or something like that, and you're like, no, literally, sorry, it is. That's the plot of Black Panther 2. Like, he just dies.
Oh yeah. I haven't seen it, but
Yeah,
Didn't
but
they have to do that because the actor
actually died? Yeah, but I mean, I think that was one of the criticisms at the time. They didn't like have him go out in a blaze of glory. He just died, you know. And I think that's kind of what's happened. I don't know.
People die.
I know, but it's just that's what I'm saying to you. It's weird. It's like, because, you know, we look at these guys, and again, like, it's not like he's an older wrestler. It's not like he's not like he's 60 or 70 or whatever.
Dude,
you know?
I'm 37.
That's what I'm saying to you. You know, you're 37, I'm 34, and it's just like, damn, like, this is, it's too close to home, you know, in that kind of sense, where you're like, it's a regular thing that people die of. You're not old, and it's just like, it's so unexpected. Like, but the legacy that he will leave, I think that's what a lot of people are struggling. And even in All Out, there were a lot of people there, a lot of people who I ran into. There are Bray Wyatt shirts everywhere. Everywhere.
So Dara missed, I think, maybe the first couple of matches of All Out.
Because I was asleep in an Uber.
No, but let's not say Dara was asleep. Dara was in the US and flew from the US to England to go straight to All In. So
yeah,
he was like, we're
not
slagging Dara. He did a hell of a journey.
I'll be honest with you. A story came out that Punk's travel was messed up. I totally empathize with that. Anyway, sorry, we'll get to it.
I'll talk about that in a bit. But one of the things that happened that you would have missed was during the first few matches and during the pre-show, every time the lights went down, people's phones went up, and the whole completely spontaneous. The whole crowd was singing, "He's got the whole world in his hands." You know, that's an AEW crowd, like, and it just goes to show that the bull that you get on Twitter is such a small minority of really bitter, horrible vocal fans. Like, the general real life fan base just is pretty sound, you know.
It is, and I mean, I think that's an important thing really to kind of bear in mind. Like, it's stuff like and even, you know, all the companies, AEW, WWE, and even Impact, have all released statements and tributes to him as well. And it's like, it's sad when stuff like this is what brings the community together. You know what I mean? It's not like something good. It's like, oh, someone died, you know? And it's just, it's sad. It's devastating. We'll probably do a Bray Wyatt show at some point. But one of the things that does kind of, I will even not, because we do have so much to talk about. I'll probably do a longer video or something like that at some point when I have processed it.
We can do a couple of, like, you can pick a couple of
matches,
matches, and we go over them 100%.
Because that would be cool, you know. But, like, I mean, one of the things that his impact is just so vast. It's actually unbelievable. Like, we've joked, you know, he's one of the greatest wrestlers outside of the ring, and then he walks in the ring and kind of falls apart, which is true, you know. I mean, that's always been the way, which is why we look at it.
Like, look, how many of the greats of all time weren't particularly, like, no one would say Hogan was a, you know, ring technician.
Exactly. But I mean, even just looking at some of the stuff that WWE have cherry picked, you know, during the week, I mean, his match where he wins in the Elimination Chamber is actually really good. You know, the Firefly Funhouse match is an experience. I watched it there recently. I was like, oh my God, this is, and I think when it's all said and done, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a Hall of Fame induction. That's probably going to happen this year. Yeah. Well, and it's, look, here's the thing. He was always going to be in the Hall of Fame, but it's sad that he's dead going into it.
Yeah.
But again, like, we will kind of touch more on Bray Wyatt eventually, you know, kind of when more comes out, or when we kind of have more time to watch matches and kind of appreciate Bray. But holy hell, man. You know, getting off a plane and hearing your favorite wrestler's dead at 37 is actually something that I never thought would happen.
No, it's and you know what, people like, you know, whenever people tend to like mourn celebrity deaths or whatever, people tend to, you know, be a wee bit maybe snide and mocking of that. But like, songs or movies or matches will have certain meanings for people, and I think it's fair enough that even without knowing somebody, they can have played a certain role in your life. I think it's fair enough that you know, kind of get to grieve as well.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, like, you expect them to come back, you know, everyone's prepping for him to come back because they were for since the Royal Rumble, and you're like, oh no, that's it.
Like I'll be taking a week off work when Shane McGowan dies. Like that's even
fair. That's fair.
And in true spirit of the man, I won't even be informing them. I'll just
not
show up.
He'll be like, sorry, buddy. It ain't happening, you know.
It's happening. I gotta listen to Red Roses for me, start to finish, for the 20th time in a row.
As it should be. But okay. So again, Terry Funk. A lot of people kind of were just over Terry Funk or just over the news, and then it hit. So his death shouldn't be diminished either. One of the greatest of all time in that style of wrestling, particularly for the hardcore kind of stuff. But also, again, he was instrumental in ECW, instrumental in WCW, Chainsaw Charlie in WWE, and even in Impact, TNA. He was in the early days of TNA as well. So
I think obviously certain fans won't be as familiar, maybe younger fans won't be as familiar with Terry Funk. And here, look, who am I? Like, my introduction to Terry Funk came through Mick Foley.
Yeah.
Like, I have no tapes of Funk Flair going 70 minutes in the 70s. Like, I don't have that kind of background. But what I have seen is all the wrestlers that I admire today talking about not only what a legend Funk was, not only how he inspired them, but how even when he was like his knees had no cartilage left in them, even then, how he was always willing to go back and give back to the young fellas and get in the ring and take the fall to some up and coming guy. Like, he did it with Foley, he did it with Moxley. Apparently, so this was a couple of months before his death. Tony Schiavone and Taz were having a crack on the commentary desk about all the greatest wrestlers of all time. They were talking about this, that, and the other. And apparently, Eddie Kingston rang them to say, "Shut up, it's Terry Funk." So even without knowing his back catalogue or whatever yourself, his impact on the business is there, and it seems to be almost not even entirely, almost a uniquely positive one. Nobody has anything bad to say about him.
No, and that kind of speaks volumes in and of itself.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Like this is a business, and we're going to talk about it now in a minute, where egos collide and people don't get along, and people you think just are the best in the world, there'll be someone to say something terrible about them. But I've literally never heard one negative story about Terry Funk.
No, it's usually very much the opposite, where you hear nothing but great things about Terry Funk.
Yeah.
Right. So that
let's
from
go.
that to very much something else. Okay. So we've said on this show,
become a bit of a catchphrase, hasn't it?
It's become a bit of a segment.
Yeah, not even a catchphrase.
It's become a bit of a segment where it's Martin would lay out this brilliant yarn. It would be carefully tended like the best garden in the world, and it would be intricate, and it would make tons of money, and everybody would love it. And then I would say, "But Punk."
But Punk, yeah. It's a segment that becomes truer and truer every week, it seems.
Every week, it seems. And I was sitting in the crowd all in. Now, I was pretty far up. I was up in the nosebleeds. So Martin was a little bit closer to me. I was sitting beside two gentlemen, two different cadres of people. So two lads on one side, and then one lad and either his son or his young brother over the other side. And as Punk was walking out, I couldn't believe that Punk and Joe were opening the show. It's that's so weird, right? And then one of them was like, "Yeah, sure, this is probably because of the drama with Bucks." And I'm like, "Oh, that makes way more sense because he doesn't want to be anywhere near them, so he can leave." I was like, "Okay, well, ha ha ha, me and Martin have a laugh at that on Friday. That's pretty funny. That he's that bitter. He won't even main event the show, or he won't co-main event the show. He'll just open the show so he can leave. I'm like, that's hilarious, right? So then we're watching the match, and I'm like, oh, this match is awesome because it's Punk and Joe, right? And then another guy, the other guy over there says like, hey, there's been a fight backstage. I'm like, what? It's like, what? And he's like, yeah, apparently Punk attacked Jungle Boy. And I'm like, what? Again, because you don't think this is real, and this has never happened before, where you're watching a show, you're effectively watching a company's WrestleMania, and the guy wrestling in the ring has just had a fight backstage that's breaking as the show is happening. And I'm just like, this is insane. So as the match is going on, more and more details are coming out about it, and I've never actually experienced that before. So before we get into what happened, Martin, did that happen to you? Were phones going off all around you about what was actually happening?
No, it did not.
Okay.
I'll tell you where I am with the Punk saga.
Oh no, we should explain what happened first, real quick.
Oh yeah, okay. So there's 3, 4, 5, 10 different versions of it. Essentially, what we know for a fact is, during his match with Hook, Jack Perry got smashed into a car windscreen,
which was a manky sounding spot, if I can say. Where I could just hear it, and I was like, "Oh my god, that sounds so painful! It's unbelievable."
Glorious. Do you know what? And this is going to sound mental, but it was so. The stadium is so big that it was so far away that he hit the glass, and like a fraction of a second later, I heard it, and it reminded me of I got up one morning, one Sunday morning in the 90s to go to mass, and we walked out the front door, and there was a huge army barracks like across from our house, but maybe 10 or 12 fields away. And I was just waiting for my dad to come out. I was only a young fella to come out and get in the car. And I was looking at the barracks. And this thing came hurtling over the sky towards the barracks and then hit the top of it. And then the top of the barracks exploded. Just blew to pieces. And like 5 seconds later, I heard...
Wow, it's kind of like thunder.
Yeah, there's that delayed thing between, obviously, with light and sound and that.
Yeah.
And it was almost like that when he hit the glass. But the point was that Jack Perry...
I was just above it. I couldn't see it. That was the funny part. Because I couldn't see the stage. All I could hear it, and just on the screen, I'm like, oh my god, that sounded horrible. Because I was right above it.
Well, Jack Perry hit the glass, and then he rolled, like he sold it, and once he was recovering, he did a wee wink to the camera, and he went, so he made some comment like, and that's real glass.
Cry me a river.
Which was...
so he said, real glass, cry me a river.
Yes, which was a reference to an argument he and Punk had a couple of weeks earlier, a bit of segment in which he gets his head put through a car window.
Which, can I just say, he obviously hasn't seen what happened to Goldberg. Punk actually was in the right here, because that's stupid. That's how you get killed. That's legitimately. Goldberg,
so you get lacerated.
Yeah, Goldberg nearly lost his arm. Jack Perry was in the wrong here. Can I just say that? Look. What, did Punk go about it the right way? No.
Well, here's the thing.
He was right, though.
There's 10 different versions, so I'm not going to say which version. But Perry came back from his match, and basically Punk's match was next. Yep. So the two of them crossed paths, and somebody said something, and a row started. Now, there's 10 different variations about who started it and who was the first to comment.
We don't know who started yet, but it did end up with Punk. So either Punk threw us, I don't know what pie facing. What's pie facing? I've heard this term a lot. What is it?
I have no. I think it's one of those Yankee terms. I assume he didn't throw a pie at him.
Yeah, I from what I gather, I think he shoved his hand into his face.
Punk was just coming from catering. And he had his pre-match pie.
I think pie facing, he might have shoved his hand in his face or something. That's probably what it is. But
well, AEW should call that zero miedoing.
I don't know, but it apparently for all accounts of it end with Punk doing a guillotine choke on him, which is like, Punk's, come on, like, what are you doing? I've seen him in UFC. He can't hurt anybody. Like, what's wrong with you?
No, but here's one of the things. So, like, you have UFC, you have wrestling, and then you have real fights.
Yeah.
And Chris Jericho had a fight with Goldberg,
and he won
WWF.
He killed him.
And he wrote well, it's not even that he killed him. He wrote in his book that he got him in a guillotine headlock, and he says in any real life situation that's a fight ender.
You don't really, and they're like scuffles. I don't call them fights as such. They're like scuffles because you're not going to go on the ground in town with broken bottles because no.
But here's the thing. I think you've hit the perfect word there. I don't think this was a fight.
I think it was a scuffle. That's what it was.
I think this was a scuffle, and I think that wrestling media, and even calling it wrestling media is pretty grand. It's 90% of wrestling media is one lad with his Twitter account that he calls, Ringside Revelations or whatever. And they made a huge deal out of this.
Yeah.
Like, this stuff happened all the time pre-Twitter. Like, mother of God, how many times did Brett and Sean bait each other? We had Jericho and Goldberg, like
hair pulling.
Handbags, as I say in GAA.
At least, to be honest with you, right? At least with Punk, they may have thrown one or two slaps, which apparently weren't even. They didn't do, because he was at a weird angle where he couldn't actually do anything. But at least he put him in a choke.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is look, these are wrestling's fake, whatever. Look, it is a combat sport, whatever you think of it. Like, these are guys who are hyped up, running on adrenaline. There's a lot of egos in wrestling. There's a lot of energy. I mean, I think it's pretty much to be expected that there's going to be scuffles, disagreements, heated arguments, and I don't think it helps that the wrestling media, desperate for clicks, make this out to be the most hyperbolic thing in the world.
I think the biggest problem here, though, the difference between this and Brawl Out. Well, by the way, can I just appreciate that they were quick to call it Brawl In and Brawl Out. It's quite wonderful. I'm just
If you were a more cynical person, would think this is all a work.
No, Martin, we're not going there again. Where everything's a work. No, this is the man just likes to fight people. That's
what we're gonna do a wrestling version of the Lego song. Everything is awesome.
Everything is a work.
For Christmas, we're gonna release a single. Everything's a work.
No, listen, Punk, right? But Punk. It's just, I can't believe it, right? they built a show around him, right? Sorry, they brought him in, gave him ridiculous amounts of money, right? Then he, make him the champion twice despite being injured, right? Yep. Goes and has a fight, right? They bring him back, give him another title, give him his own show, make him the locker room leader, have him open the show,
have him handpick who is on the bloody show.
Yeah, exactly. Literally, there's no more that Tony could do. At this point, I don't even know what Tony could do to pacify him, and it's just what could he do?
Because here's the thing: even if let's say, worst case scenario, let's say Jack Perry was the one who started the fight, right?
Yeah.
Let's say Jack Perry was the one who was walking back and said, what do you think of that? I showed you, blah, 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 right? He's Jack Perry, right? He's a well-known wrestler and that, but he's still a young fella. He's still up and coming. You're CM Punk. You're literally the biggest wrestler in the world. Take the goddamn high road. You don't need to prove how tough you are and start a fight with everybody.
But I mean, again, fighting with Jungle Boy, it's what did you achieve? It's not like you fought Miro. That would be an achievement.
You beat Jungle Boy.
Like,
yeah,
okay.
obviously.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's not even close. Like,
obviously, you beat Jungle Boy. You have a literal UFC background.
Yeah, it's like, come on, and apparently he's like, I put him in a choke because I didn't think fighting him was fair. It's like, you still choked him out for no reason. It's like, this is, what are you doing? You know.
Here's the thing with, like, I'm so over all the Punk. I really like Punk. Actually, I love Punk. Right.
So do I. Yeah.
I want to see headlines about Punk because I want to see him in the ring. I want to see him do promos. We're going to review All In a minute, and that match he had with Joe was effing awesome. Like, I want to hear loads about Punk. I want Punk to be a top player.
Here's the concerning part about all that, right? Apparently, during the thing, he said, or beforehand, so his travel arrangements were messed up, and he ended up having to take the tube. Now, here's the thing. I took an Uber to the arena. Why can't you take Uber? That was weird. I mean, look, I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
That's so weird. It's like, look, the tube is actually really handy. If you're going into Heathrow, you can get the tube, take you right to Victoria, and then you're pretty much in the city. You can go anywhere you want. You can go out and get an Uber. It's not difficult. It's really easy, actually. London is the only annoying thing about London is no bins anywhere. Which James, by the way, hey James, you guys actually got to hang out, which I'm really jealous about because I was asleep.
We did. James is
the best. I'm so annoyed I didn't get to meet James, but he would tell me why there's no bins in London. Which that's the only annoying thing about London. There's no bins there. But as far as getting around. No,
and we can't even blame them for there being no bins because it is partly our fault. Can't really complain.
That's the only annoying. I'm still going to complain. That's the only thing that's annoying about it. Other than that, and it wasn't like that's what he was upset about. He was upset about having to get the tube. Tube was wonderful. You get on it, it's grand, and then you get there. So I don't really know why he was upset. Well, apparently that's why he was so angry getting to the arena. Yeah, so he already
if he wasn't angry about that, he would have been.
But he already had this in his head that he was, peed off,
slighted or being.
And apparently he blew up at Tony Khan beforehand. So he freaked out at Tony and he was like, I hate this place, which is ridiculous because it's like he's literally giving you everything you could possibly want, except for maybe the ice cream bars. Maybe that's what he wants. Give Punk ice cream bars.
But he give him the ice cream bar. He give him so I'm actually delighted to hear you say that because I thought I was the only one. Whenever I saw the article going, there was nobody at Heathrow to greet Punk, I'm like,
it's London.
That's terrible.
It's so easy to get from London.
That's an oversight. Maybe use some of your millions of dollars to get an Uber.
Exactly. It's like you could
use a fraction of a percentage of the AEW contract you currently have to get an effing Uber to the stadium.
Here's the thing. He could probably buy someone for the day to drive him around.
And the day he landed, London was crawling with fans. He probably could have said to someone, I'll sign your shirt if you let me piggyback on you and you just carry me to Wembley. Like, of all the people who were lost in London that day, Punk was the least lost person who's ever been
He's also CM Punk. All he has to do is just take the hat off, which I'm assuming he was wearing, and everybody would just carry him on a throne to Wembley.
What wrestling fan wouldn't want to say, oh my God, did you know that I was actually the one who got Punk to Wembley? Like,
it doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. That whole thing.
It's just nonsense.
It's just nonsense. Look, I can travel can be difficult. I get that. It's a long L flight from America to Europe. It is. But you're CM Punk. You probably flew first class. You probably had a great flight. And I just don't understand why you couldn't get an Uber. It's the airport. Yeah. It's Heathrow Airport.
You definitely have the app. It's the same app.
It's the same app.
No matter where you are in the world.
So I did not fly first class. I flew coach and I had an 8-hour layover. I could still use Uber. CM Punk. I got an Uber to Wembley. It's very easy.
So
I don't understand it. Crazy.
So I'm really torn with all this stuff.
But sorry, Anno, just 1 second. He said he's sick of this place and he threatened to quit. Now apparently, as we're recording this, he lunged at Tony. Which, if that is true, now that part's alleged, right? That just broke today. If that's true, he is going to be fired because he attacked Tony, allegedly.
I don't think Tony would fight.
I don't know.
I think Tony. I think one of the best things about Tony is that he is actually a wrestling fan.
I know, but there's a very big difference between, handbags and then also being like attacked. And if he did lunge at him or whatever,
I don't know. Tony strikes me as the kind of guy who'd love to be able to tell people, "Oh, you see the scar? I got that from CM Punk."
Oh, fair enough. I mean, the thing about it is, it's like this didn't do him any favors backstage.
Oh no.
So the locker room were probably happy enough to let the last one go, but now we've spent like 10 minutes ish talking about this when we should be talking about All In. This is the second show in a row, he's just ruined the show. Where all people are talking about is CM Punk fighting backstage when he should be talking about AEW literally having the biggest achievement in wrestling history.
So, see, after Brawl Out, I was like once I got over my suspicions that it was all a work, I was really I was convinced.
I told you it was
for months. I was convinced.
I know you were. God bless you,
but once I got over that, I was like, well, now I just want this all to pass, and I just want Punk back in the ring, and I want the roster and all that. Now I'm at the stage where, like, if Punk had been fired after Brawl Out, I would have thought that was a disaster. Now I'm at the stage where I want him to stay. I want Punk to be a wrestler. I want to see the storylines he can do, the promos he can do, the matches he can do. But he's clearly having such a negative impact on the roster and on the show that if he is fired, I mean, I don't think I'd be that bothered at this stage. Which is, when you think back to when he came in on Rampage, the first dance, like a year and a half ago, whatever it was, like the whole wrestling world was elated. And in 18 months, he has people like me, a diehard AEW Punk fan, going, do you know what, if he's fired, like, he hasn't done his legacy any favors,
He hasn't. And we will move on because, we have to. Obviously, look, this story, folks, is not going anywhere. It's going to keep getting more. It's going to happen again. It never ends. It's like the cleaning of a house. It never ends. Punk will do this everywhere he goes. I'm convinced he can't help himself. I genuinely don't. Like, well, in this case, he was right. But going about it that way is just.
But I don't even think he was right in this case, because even if Jack Perry started it, which isn't clear, but even if he did, you're like 10 steps above him in seniority.
Yeah.
Take the high road.
It's crazy. I mean, look, if he wants to throw hands, he can go back to UFC. Well, he can't because he has a record that's real bad. But he can go somewhere else and fight in the weekends.
Well, here's the thing is, so two things.
I don't understand why he hates money so much. It's like, you're a millionaire. Just enjoy it. Just go off and,
It's mad. And like what are you motivated by? Are you motivated by money? Then do a thing with the elite. Are you motivated by like creative control and like making something important? Then do a thing with the elite. Are you motivated by making like wrestling history and being a wrestling then do a thing with the elite. What in the goddamn hell are you motivated? What do you want?
It's like that Jennifer Lawrence thing. It's like, what do you want? What do you want?
Yeah, it's like,
and that's kind of what it's like.
Being
it's like
a wrestling fan, Tony Khan dealing with Punk must feel like he's asking his girlfriend, what does she want to eat? What do you want? Just tell me what you want.
I just don't understand it. I'm like, listen, Punk versus the Elite, even separately,
it's
massive gay.
That would sell out Wembley
3 or 4 times in a row.
And you're talking about, in terms of pay-per-view buys, like WrestleMania level pay-per-view buys.
And the thing about it is, they don't have to do anything. Just have to I am convinced. Look, I'm going to say this, we will end on this. Just don't do a storyline for Punk. Just have the camera on backstage the whole time. Just let it go. Because I mean that's what's happening anyway. They might as well do it on TV. But that's what they should just do it anyway. Like have the actual scripted show, but then just have Collision be, a camera constantly following Punk.
So before we're going to move on now in literally seconds.
Yeah.
Before we finish the Punk stuff, I just want to say two things. One, I don't care what happens with him in AEW. He's not going to WWE. It's not happening.
He can't. He cannot. It's a liability.
Program made for him, and he fell out with the guy who is his biggest fan. Punk would not have one foot in the locker room before he'd fallen out with Triple H and The Miz and Stephanie McMahon.
No, I mean, look,
other Nick Khan, and it just unthinkable. So he's not going to WWE.
No.
The other thing is
Impact can't afford him.
Impact can't afford him. But the other thing is that, like you were saying, if he has all this pent up energy and he does want to fight people and that, he doesn't need to go to UFC. He doesn't need to go to Bellator or any of them.
He goes to the Chipper at 2 a.m.
No, he just needs to say it to Tony, because he already has the trademark on Brawl. He's got Brawl in and Brawl out. He just needs to say to Tony, let's do a Brawl for all.
Oh my God.
Right.
Yes.
And then he'll be mortified when he gets legitimately knocked out by, Dolph Ziggler's brother. Buy the rights to Brawl for all. You could probably buy them off WWE for about 20 quid.
Or just call it Brawl In. Tony, there you go. Just do that. Punk versus anyone who wants, and then they can properly throw hands, and Punk will get battered in the first round and it might knock some sense into him. Brilliant idea.
Yeah, and all the people backstage who have issues with each other, I know Sammy Guevara and Eddie Kingston and everything. Put them in one side of the bracket and put Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker the other side of the bracket.
Oh man, this is single-handedly the best and worst idea ever. But this is probably, what? This is probably exactly what Russo was thinking. He's like, JBL.
Now that you said that, I hate it.
No. But this is probably the dynamics, because obviously we don't know, because the internet wasn't really a thing then. And it's like, do you think maybe JBL was that toxic that he created that? Or do you think maybe Punk is just so unbelievably toxic that it's come full circle and we're like, Brawl for all, that will fix everything?
I don't think that any of them are particularly toxic. I think that Twitter is toxic. And that if
don't Twitter you mean X
or X, whatever,
the worst name ever.
If Twitter, and I know the internet was around, but it was very limited to people in certain chat rooms with dial-up. If the kind of internet we have now had been around during the Attitude Era, it would not have been as iconic and as amazing as it was, because it would have been torn apart by goddamn neckbeards.
Agree. Absolutely agree. Look, we'll leave it there.
Yes.
Brawl in, brawl out needs to be a thing. Tony, if you're listening, I know I give you a hard time because it's completely earned, but you can have that one for free.
Call it Brawl In, but just BRAWLIN apostrophe.
Amazing. I'd buy it 6 times.
Oh my God, wouldn't you? On all your devices.
On all devices. I just throw money at it constantly.
All playing at once.
It'd be incredible. Oh man. But then again, look, AEW, they need to I don't know. There's just so much money to be made there. It's like, I was actually having a conversation with someone on the fly home, and I was like, listen, he was going on and on about AEW. I'm like, okay, and you know me, right? And I'm like, okay,
you already deal with one person who goes on. You don't need another.
I just sat there listening instead of saying anything. But he did put on a good point, right? And I think when we're talking about All In, that's something to worth thinking about. He says, AEW is everything I ever wanted from wrestling. And I'm like, so basically Tony Khan has just listened to the fans and that's how he made the money. It's like, yeah. And I think that puts so much into perspective when you think about it, where it's like AEW's business model on one hand is giving people exactly what they want, NXT 2015, but then some more on top of it. But then on the other side, they're trying to placate the wishes of a madman. who's not motivated by anything else. He's not motivated by any logic. And I'm like, they're starting to like attack each other now. It's weird.
AEW has given me everything I want as a fan, but that's not to say that it's perfect.
No, of course not. Nothing is.
It is, as a wrestling promotion, that's what I want. But here's the thing about wrestling. Wrestling's not like a series that has, 10 or 12 episode cycle and then takes a break and then people can write stories and then come back. But it is just a constant, continuous thing, and it has to roll with the punches, and it has to, like, there's been a lot of very legitimate criticism about the build all in and now the build all out. Yeah. But like, you also have to kind of balance that with the fact that like they're dealing with like real life like people getting injured, and then people whose visas aren't like they're not allowed into certain parts of Europe or whatever, and then they're dealing with egos like Punk, and like wrestling's like this constant, so it's never going to be perfect. And in the same way that you can't have a pay-per-view that is 10 5-star 30-minute classics, like you wouldn't want that.
Yeah,
you can't have 52 Dynamites in a row that are all 5-star like it's just not the way it works.
No.
So like when people say, I think people get slightly hyperbolic. Like whenever I say something like AEW's everything I ever wanted in wrestling, I genuinely mean that. But that
I know.
doesn't mean that I think it's perfect.
No, and look, I mean, I wasn't implying that it would be perfect either, but it's just it's funny that like what AEW are doing, it just makes sense. Like Wembley in all, sorry, running a show in Wembley, right? A WrestleMania, a SummerSlam, that made sense. It made sense last week. It made sense 5 years ago. It made sense 10 years ago. It made sense 20 years ago. It's never not made sense. But for some reason, Vince never had the epiphany that Tony Khan had, where it's like, hey, I can just print money.
Yeah.
Beyond it. And what I'm saying is,
here's like, actually, you're actually kind of wrong there, because Vince did have this at the start, and then over the years he lost it. Like Vince over the years stopped wanting to produce wrestling and started wanting to produce, we make movies, pal.
No, what I'm saying is like, yeah, you're right there, but what I'm saying is like the most passionate, and I hate to use that word because it's used so much, but the most passionate wrestling fans that I've ever encountered, and you can see it by the wrestling media, they're all in England. I mean, that's where a lot of these big YouTube channels, which some are better than others. Personally, I'm not a big fan of 90% of them. But that aside, what I am saying is it's just like those lads, they do a lot of work. Cultaholic and etc. They all do some good stuff, and their coverage is quite good. Now, to be fair, it's not. I
like Cultaholic. I'm not a big fan of etc.
The fact that exists, and that's existed for quite some time and was never really taken advantage of. Look at OTT, right? They have done so much great work because they've captured this like ravenous fan base, even in Ireland, and it just was never. It was never like catered for, And I'm just like, right, so Wembley would have sold out no matter what, or not sold out, but it would have been a huge crowd no matter what. But add the novelty of it, because there is a lot of novelty, right? But also the show itself was actually quite good, and had a lot of really good elements to it as well. Even for like a non-AEW fan like myself, I still thought it was very, very good. And the on-screen thing was great. Like,
come on, Dara, you're a partial AEW. You're not a non-AEW fan at this stage.
I'm a non-Tony Khan fan. Let's put it that way. I mean, I'm a non-Hangman Page fan. But I know.
Dara.
CJ had the same reaction today.
You're breaking my heart.
I know. I'm sorry. Look, I like the Bucks. I like Omega. But Jeff Jarrett should have won a belt. Can I just say that?
He did win a belt. He won the Leatherface belt. What more do you want? The
Jeff Jarrett.
coveted Leatherface Championship.
And I missed it because I was asleep in the Uber. I was devastated.
Martin texted a couple of weeks ago.
Martin texted me to be like, Jeff Jarrett's on the show. I'm like, what? So annoyed. But anyway.
Oh, I was honest to God, like, so Dara made just the worst journey. But I was honest to God got it for you because there was so much on the pre-show that you would have genuinely loved.
I know. It was like TNA City. I was just like, they just put TNA on the Grado was there and everything, and I was like,
Grado, Jeff Jarrett, Grado bust Jeff Jarrett with a guitar. Like the place.
I was so annoyed.
I knew this was going to be an amazing show because see the Grado Jeff Jarrett stuff.
Yeah,
I don't even think that was on 0 hour, was it?
No, well, it was on like it was pre because I got there for 0 hour. That was just literally for you guys.
That was just for the live audience.
Yeah. And
they went buck she wah for that.
See, I didn't.
Well, if the crowd is going mental for this, wait till the show starts.
When I walked in, you could hear because here's the crazy thing, right? Because when I showed up, it was during that period, but not before 0 hour. It was like in that weird period before 0 hour started, and obviously, there was nobody on the walk up to Wembley because they're all in the arena. And it was weird because everything was still running, but it wasn't running. You know what I mean? And then you just hear like the roar of the crowd. And I don't think I've ever heard that many people in that area before. So it was surreal. I mean, probably some Americans who are listening to us are like, oh, that's not really that big of a crowd. For us, that's a huge crowd. Like 81,000, that's insane. Well,
so here's the thing. Let's briefly cover the numbers. 81,035, right? So wrestling has a history of like juicing the
making
numbers.
Stuff up. Yeah, making stuff up randomly. Yeah.
So AEW were so adamant that they didn't want there to be any question about them setting the record that they didn't count any number except paid tickets who showed up and went through the turnstile. There was actually more than 90,000 people there.
But they were comps and stuff.
They didn't count comps. They didn't count sponsors. They didn't count wrestlers' families.
Wow.
Basically, anyone who got in who didn't purchase and pay for a ticket, they didn't count them. So the 81,035 people there were 100% fans who saw the show and bought a ticket and travelled and went.
That's crazy.
But the actual audience was
even better again.
Over 90,000. Yeah.
Wow, that's unreal. That's look, again, all due respect to them. Like, it is a huge achievement. And look, could WWE have done it? Yeah, absolutely. Did they? No. AEW own that record. It's their record, and they deserve it.
WWE will probably break it next. Like, they'll probably go, oh, we can't let AEW have this, and they'll probably do a show somewhere, and it'll probably be 80,000 or 81,036.
But still, I mean, it's not the same though, because I mean, even when you were there, the atmosphere with everybody wasn't like anything I've ever been around before. And now, look, I've been to WWE shows, I've been to TNA shows. I've never been to a show like that before, where the fan base were so knowledgeable and so there for it. You know, nobody was just there because they didn't want to watch it, or they were there because they couldn't wait to leave. It was more like everyone was there for something. Luckily, I got exactly what I wanted within the first couple of minutes, and I was like, "This is unbelievable." Because I had gone in with the expectation. I'm like, "Listen, I'm KOing here fast, you know, but I will hang out for Joe and Punk." So I got that, and then I was able to dip out at some point and watch the rest of the show on television. And that's one thing as well, before we go into it, watching the show on television after being there live, that was a very cool experience, because it's, man,
yes.
I don't know if you've ever like done that before, or I know you've probably watched it since. It's a completely different ballgame.
I have never been to a wrestling show that wasn't like a local independent.
Right, really?
So my first experience of like international wrestling was the literal biggest show in history.
Oh man, what a place to start, right?
Yeah, and I can't help but think, given the stats, that I had something to do with it. I mean,
I think so too. I think that is totally fair.
It's just a coincidence that the star of the Wrestling Rewind goes to his first like major show, and it's the biggest crowd ever. I'm just saying. They weren't all there for Punk.
No, they weren't. I mean, you have a win over Punk.
And exactly. Maybe that's what they were. Maybe that's what people were expecting.
That you were expecting you to come out and beat Punk.
Well, here, listen. I'm only going to say this because I know none of my family listen to this show, but I put up a picture. So I had this tricolor. It was a tremendous joke that about 3 people got, but I had this tricolor, and on the orange end of the tricolor I had the outline of Orange Cassidy. So the joke was that it was green, white and Orange Cassidy, and it was great. Everyone at the show really liked it, and at the end of the event some guy came over to me and he gave me his replica world title. So I put the title on me and I held up the flag and he took a picture. And I posted it to my Instagram, my Facebook, whatever, saying, "Oh, went to All In, only bloody won the world title, didn't I?" Very funny joke.
Exactly.
Silly Martin. No, I had about you can even go in it now and check. I had about 5 or 6 relatives comment underneath, "Well done, Martin. Fantastic stuff. Great to see you doing well for yourself."
Wow. Well, that's what I'm saying. The real world champion.
Yeah, to at least 4 people in Dundalk, I am the genuine real world champion. Although it also upset me that if I literally won the world title, the most I'd get would be a couple of clap emojis.
It's better to know these things, though, right?
Isn't it? Now I know it's not worth the bother of trying.
It's not worth the bother. Guys, we are going to leave it there. If you're checking us out on the radio, we're going to pop back and talk about All In properly after this break. Wait. So, guys, if you're checking us out here, thank you so much. But go over to thewrestlingrewind.com. Go over to nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Get on the Wrestling Rewind. This show was incredible, and we can't wait to talk about it.
There's so much content there that's free. And if you want to, you can go over to Patreon and give us an X-Pac Euro as well. Or for 1 week only, an X-Pac Pound.
Yeah. Give us the old sterling.
The old sterling.
The old sterling Archer.
And we'll be back after this short break, guys.
Do you have nothing else to do on a Saturday? Do you like nerd things? Now check out Nerd to Know Basis here on Phoenix 92.5 FM, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then head over to nerdtoknowmedia.com for all of our shows as part of the Nerd to Know Media Radio Network.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.